starts, well, hello, that's when the podcast will start. But the video will still be like right now.
All right.
Hello. Yeah, right, exactly. Where is that? Here we go.
Take one.
Done.
I do our quick sound check. And then we
Check
rock
1
and
2
roll.
1 2 1 2. Man, this is exciting.
Yes.
All right, everybody say
Praise
hello.
God.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it sound?
10-second delay.
5 4 3 2.
We'll talk.
Good. Are we good?
All right, perfect. We're perfect.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, get us started, Mr. Harrison Painter.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Amplify Indy podcast. My name is Harrison Painter,
And I'm Josh Bach.
and we have some very special guests in
We
the house
do.
today.
I've been looking forward to this for several weeks now. The opportunity to talk with Tony and Dianna Speziale. We met at Tres Dias.
Amen. Yes.
Was that 3 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago?
Maybe 4.
I think it has been 4 weeks now.
Yeah,
Wow, time is
yeah.
flying right now.
Yeah, and we shared some stories, intimate stories about our life and why we're here. Why
What
we're
is
doing
Tres
what we're doing.
Dias? We might want to explain
Well,
that to the audience.
Tony, why don't you share what Tres Dias is?
Well, Tres Dias is kind of a 3-day spiritual awakening type retreat. I know Tres Dias, the one that I met Josh and you on, is I believe it's the non-denomination.
Correct.
But there's other forms. My wife went to
Walk to Emmaus.
and there's like a
And Great Banquet they're a lot the same.
and some of them are kind of geared towards Presbyterian. I think Lutheran.
What's the one you
Crescia is where it started, and then branched
and
out.
Crescia's Catholic, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing 3 days. I can tell you it changed
Yes.
my life. It definitely brought me closer to God and
beyond a
deeper
shadow
in
of a
my
doubt.
faith. Yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Awesome experience, like fun.
Changed you in a great way.
Wow, for sure.
We
Yeah.
talk about things you found, forgiveness,
Amen.
which we'll go a little bit deeper on, forgiveness of yourself, which is the hardest one.
Yeah. Well, and obviously we're going to be talking about the Jesus Film Project.
Amen.
So
Yes.
So Tony Speziale and his wife Dianna, you guys are on a mission.
Yes.
An amazing mission. Share a little bit about the Jesus Film Project. I'm sure there's 530 individuals, 530 million people that have watched
That's
it.
correct. A lot of people
530 million people.
have come to know Jesus.
Oh, not have watched it,
Okay.
have been saved
Have-
through
have-
the video.
Yes, have come
through
to
the
know
movie.
Christ through the film since 1979. So Campus Crusade for Christ, kind of now known as Cru, developed this film and the Jesus Film Project in 1979. The film was created entirely in Israel with a cast of over 200 actors. And so since that time, it's gone obviously around the world. It's I think in the Guinness book, it is the most translated film in the history of film.
Which is currently around how many translations?
We're up to around 1,800 now.
Oh my gosh.
And kind of the mission, not to get too far ahead, but at Cru and Jesus Film, we have a thing called Vision 2025, which is where our goal is to get the Jesus Film translated into the mother tongue or native language of all 7,000 languages spoken around the world.
So wait a minute. I want to touch on that fact because when we think of languages, we typically probably have 10, 15 in our head, right?
English,
Russian
Spanish,
and Japanese
German.
and Spanish and German. But you're saying there's 7,000
7,000.
different languages. Now, does that include dialects within the same
does,
language?
Yeah.
I think there's closer to about a little under 1,000 major languages that have a minimum of 50,000 speakers. But if you take all the languages and dialects all together, it totals right at 7,000. Like I was in
incredible.
Papua New Guinea, there's 865 languages spoken in Papua New Guinea alone. It's the most linguistically diverse country in the world. So.
And this is much different than what, say, an American would think a Southern accent or a Boston
Right.
accent. This is truly
Right.
you're speaking where one could not quite understand
yes,
the other.
absolutely, yeah.
That's incredible.
That's
7,000.
And Papua New Guinea isn't a very big country.
It's got a little under 8 million.
People.
So yes,
Okay. So like size wise, I mean, 8 million's a lot.
I would say.
I couldn't let that one go. Yeah, people.
I'll stop there.
But as far as the size, because there's a lot of people that are in very small countries like Japan. There's a ton of people in Japan, but it's pretty small.
Half of the island is Papua New Guinea. The other half is Papua Indonesia. Combined, it is the second largest island in the world. So it's a pretty good size island.
I did not know that.
It's just north of Australia, and so if you count Australia as the largest island, it would be the second largest.
Okay.
Interesting.
So I think it's maybe the size of Florida, maybe something like that. It's a pretty good size island, or maybe not.
You lived there 2 years.
I did.
Wow. Tell us about that. Tell us about. Well, we should.
Well, wait. We got to go back a little bit.
Let's go back.
Let's go back because it puts everything in context. 8 years ago.
Yes.
What were you doing 8 years ago?
Wow, 8 years ago, I was a hardcore alcoholic, and when I don't use that term loosely, in the fact that I would drink a liter of Jim Beam a day and a few beers. I was an everyday drinker for about 28 years, and I was, going through a divorce, had a house in foreclosure, and was on the verge of losing my job that I had held with a Fortune 500 company for 14 years. And,
everything's crumbling.
Everything's crumbling. The doctor said I had the onset of cirrhosis, renal failure. I was on 3 different kinds of medication for anxiety, blood pressure, and just my stomach was being eaten alive, literally, by the alcohol. So at that point, it was Valentine's night, and I was lying in bed, and of all things, my German Shepherd that I had had since a puppy, he was 13, he just died suddenly. And I was lying in bed, and I was like, I can't take it. This is it.
Even your dog.
My dog died
Passed
on
away.
Valentine's Day.
Wow.
So
That's a bad situation.
That's a bad Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So I was just lying in bed, and I just literally said, God, if you're real, here's your chance, because I'm at the end of my own road. I've made a mess of things, and Harrison, I literally sat up in bed as soon as I uttered that short prayer, and I didn't fully understand what had happened to me at that point, but I knew I was changed. I knew I was different. Just like that. And I have, since that day, have never even craved alcohol. Was almost a 2-pack-a-day cigarette smoker, just totally gone. And so I knew that God had a call for my life. And I continued to work, but I had this insatiable appetite for the Word of God. Anything Paul wrote, I would just dissect it and cross-reference it. And
I need to touch on something real quick, though, just from a verbiage standpoint, because this always blows my mind, too, like how great God really is.
Right.
You used the verbiage, God, I'm giving you your chance to prove yourself to me.
Yep.
But the beautiful thing is he did.
yeah.
Right? But that verbiage, and I know many of us have used verbiage like that.
Certainly, yeah.
Here you go. Here's your shot.
Yeah. But you sometimes have to start there in order
Right.
to...
Yeah.
But God
Absolutely.
meets us where we are.
Yeah, it's grace. Sometimes we don't have the right words to say, but He knows our heart.
Absolutely.
And I was at a very low point, and I just said, God, and He heard me.
I love it.
So, praise
So
God.
studying Paul.
I did, yeah. So I just was really into the Word of God and so forth, and this went on for about a year. Started taking like online courses and Old Testament, and one day I was driving, and I just said, Lord, what's up with this desire to learn more about the Bible? And He just spoke to me, and I told Him, I said, I work this just a regular job, and He said, not for long. And it wasn't an audible, type voice, He didn't.
Sure.
But it was just in my heart. I knew. So I kind of started looking, keeping my eyes open at what maybe God would have for me. And I started going to a good Bible-based church here in the city in Indianapolis, and became friends with this young couple who were preparing to move to Ethiopia with their 4 children. And kind of was able to walk alongside them for a season and help them do what Dianna and I are kind of doing now, raise support and prepare to move as missionaries. And man, I thought really that would just be awesome. How cool to be a missionary. But I really just I discounted that thought because now I was divorced. A year prior, I was an alcoholic, no theological training whatsoever. And so I just kept on, doing my, going to church, studying the Word, doing all these things. And I actually went on a different spiritual retreat where I met my wife, Dianna, about 6 years ago. And so they invited me to start attending their Tuesday night Bible study, which I did. And in fact, we still go to the same group. It's the same core group is still together after all these years. Everybody kind of goes to different churches now, and for whatever, obvious reasons or whatever.
But we're like a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this one couple that led it, this particular night, they said that their son and his wife were going to come, and they were missionaries in Papua New Guinea, and he was what we term as a bush pilot. He was a pilot, flew a small aircraft in Papua New Guinea. I love airplanes, worked around them, so I thought, I got to go to this. So anyway, he and I are having a conversation after the meeting, and he asked what I did, and I told him what line of work I was doing and kind of did operations management. And he said, we've been praying for 3 years for someone to come to Papua New Guinea and be an aviation operations manager at our small airline. And it was a missionary airline. That's basically what they did. They flew missionaries around. Except for coffee. We flew coffee to subsidize flying missionaries. But it was in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, and they had 4, and still do, 4 single-engine aircraft and a couple helicopters. So I was really intrigued by that. I left that meeting that night, and I just said, God, if this is for me, which I really, really hope it is, if you open the doors, I'm gone. I'll go.
So you wanted it.
I did, yeah.
You felt a yearning, and then lo and behold, you're like, okay, please say yes.
Yeah. Well, the transformation in my life was so radical that I was ready. It was like page 2. At the time, physically, where I was at, age-wise, my life was literally half over, And so I said, God, page 2 belongs to you. And so I was excited with the opportunity to go and just do something radically different. So had a condo and a car that I sold at cost, gave everything away, and packed 2 crates. And in fact, Dianna, you can share a little bit about how we met, and shortly thereafter, we kind of became really close.
Yeah, we met at that retreat, and it was probably about 6 months later, he decided that he was called to go into missions, and so we still...
And you guys were pretty serious during that. You were getting there, right?
We were starting to
like,
get
what's
serious.
going on here?
Yeah. So he was raising support for a little while, and we just talked about it. I knew he was going to be gone, and he was going to be far away, but we were...
I think that's about as far as you can go before you start coming back.
14,000 miles.
Yeah, he was...
What is it?
14,000 miles.
He was about 14 hours ahead on time.
Yeah.
That's how far away he was.
So you're not even on the same day.
No.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
right.
15 hours ahead.
Yeah. Now, and you knew going in that it would be 2 years?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It was
Okay.
it was a minimum of 2 years,
Okay.
and there was a potential for a 3rd year, but my father actually passed away in November of 2016.
Yeah.
So I came home for that, and my mom's like, "I know you love what you're doing, but can you be closer than 14,000 miles?" And so I agreed, and so I went back to Papua New Guinea for 7 months and finished my initial assignment.
Wow. That's mind-blowing. I mean, talk about a radical change.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking a course of 6 months when you made that decision.
And the entire mission is being able to get more translations and get
Yes.
more individuals to be able to watch this movie.
So let's talk a bit about that. There's a few things I want to talk about since I've got you here, because
Sure.
you're talking to a guy that the translation thing is new to me. So I was born and raised Southern Baptist, basically, right? This hardcore fire and brimstone, King James only Baptist, and everything was fire and brimstone. I'm burning in hell for everything I did. So, of course, once I became an adult, I rebelled against all of that for a long period of time. Now, I knew I was saved. I knew that I loved God, but everything I had been taught had been, in my opinion, very, very negative, not the positive sides of things. Now, when I came back and kind of started listening to God again, you know, of course, I read the Bible start to finish last year after Tres Dias. I made that commitment. Cover to cover, I was going to get it done. Well, of course, I read the King James Version, which is a very big challenge. My daughter's actually going to Indiana Wesleyan for a global ministry, and I remember the very first time she brought a Bible home, and it was the NIV.
Yeah.
Where I was raised, that was Satan's Bible. You touch that, you are burning in hell forever, right? So I never even touched the NIV. And then my daughter now has it in my home. So the old PTSD's coming back like, I don't know how I'm supposed to deal with this, right? But as I started researching more, and after I got done with the first version, the King James of the Bible, I decided I'm going to read another translation. As I started doing the homework on it, I wanted really that, what's the closest I can get to the real Bible written in Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, and it was the NASB. As I started reading that, it just really hit me like, wow, like I'm understanding all these things I never really understood before because I understand what it says in a language I can actually comprehend.
That you grew up listening to. Yeah, learning.
And then as I started expanding, people are like, you understand we have to translate this in 7,000 languages to do what it is that we need to do, and not everyone is going to be the King James version of that language or the original, but it's getting God's word out and trusting that God actually helps you translate it the way that's in his voice. So now I've understood. Now I've read part of the NIV, and I've got the ESV. I basically have every translation, I think, that English you can have in my home, because I'm soaking it up and understanding that you can understand a verse much easier with the multiple translations.
Right.
So now I understand more of, now I'm very sympathetic even of what your cause is, to now get this translated in so many different languages, and it has to be done. And that we've only scratched the surface of that. So can you talk a little bit about what it takes? Number one, how do you target a country? And then how do you target what translation you want to work on or focus on next? And what's the process to make that happen?
Well, almost always someone has contacted the Jesus Film. It's usually a missionary or a pastor of a church who wants the Jesus Film to use it as a tool in their ministry or in their part of the world. And once they do that, then we will go out and survey the situation and see if it meets some, just some basic criteria. And we love to do cluster translations. We're qualified to do up to 9 at one time, and we'll send a team of 3 translators in there. And
over the course of what time period?
They're on the ground for about 30 days.
Okay. So up to 9 translations in 30 days. So it's better if you have multiple.
If they're there on the ground.
Time. Yeah.
So we can do those, and then, but in most cases, it just depends. If there's already a Bible that's translated in that language, then you can actually do a film. I have a short video clip on my Facebook page, and it's about a Gamo language group, Jesus Film dedication. It's about 4.5 minutes long. It will change your heart. And I just posted it on my email newsletter, and I think I posted it on Facebook as well. And just had people were watching it, and the response I got from people that were just in tears. And you're seeing these young children who have never been exposed to Jesus, and they're watching this film for the first time, and just to watch them when they're like driving the nails, the spikes in his hands, these kids are in tears. And then, and then at the end, of course, when he rises from the dead, they all start cheering. It's just, and as this gentleman speaks in the video, he said, they're not just watching a film, they're having an encounter with Jesus Christ. And
that was the film that you showed me at Tres Dias a few weeks back. And,
right.
And we need to put a link in somehow along the way, because it is powerful. I mean, I welled up. I'm like, wow, this truly is a powerful, what is it, maybe 5-minute video or something?
Yeah, about 4.5 minutes.
All right, so we'll get a link wherever you guys are watching
Yeah.
or listening to this.
You'll
and
get a
make
much
that
better
available.
idea of the mission.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's really, really cool.
So when you're translating a movie, are you overdubbing it with words, or are you just the subtitles, or both?
In most cases, there is not a written language in some places, or if not, they don't have a Bible that's been translated. So what we'll do is take the basically 2-hour film and dissect it into 200 scenes, and then we'll do a voiceover. So we'll need a native translator for each one of the languages, obviously, who can speak their native tongue as well as English. And take like the woman at the well. So that would be one scene. So you would describe, the translator in their native language would describe what's going on with the woman in the well there. So you don't necessarily translate word for word. You translate the message.
So it's like the message as a translation, right? So you're telling the story of what's happening, but just not word for word.
And there was in Papua New Guinea, there was a language over there, because when I was over there, I initially went to Papua New Guinea with Wycliffe Bible translators. And so I know, quite a bit about Bible translation. And so one of the things that someone explained to me over there was, in one of the languages in PNG, shepherd meant night hunter. So if you're translating the 23rd Psalm, you can't just go word for word, or else you're telling people that God's going to kill them in their sleep.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
probably not a good thing. Right?
No. So that's why you have to
Not
know
really
your
what
audience.
it says.
Yes. Gives new meaning to know your audience. Huh? But yeah, and that's what we'll do, is we'll do a voiceover. And so we'll usually, our teams will work 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and they'll do all 700 of these voiceovers. And then the team will pack up and come back to Orlando, Florida, which is where the Jesus film is based. And the material there will be edited, verified. As you guys know, how you match the words to the lip movements and so forth. And then they'll do a finished product. And then they'll go back and usually have a dedication. And the one that Josh and I were just talking about, the Gamo language group, was an actual dedication where, they go back and take them the film. And that's usually anywhere from 10 months to a year later from the time we set foot in the country and survey the situation to when we do an actual dedication is about a year. But that time, that number, or that amount of time is decreasing all the time through technology and so.
Do we know how much of the planet has this movie has made it to at this point, percentage wise?
Basically, the Jesus film is pretty much, or I would say, Campus Crusade in general had some sort of influence in 192 countries around the world.
192.
Yeah, which is basically, if you go by the UN statistics, is pretty much every country.
Yeah.
Wow, so you've been able to touch every country since 1979. What was that number?
192. Oh, the number of
souls
530 million people have viewed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Have come to know Christ.
Come to know Christ.
And that sounds good, but when you think about right now, there's 7.7 billion people on the planet, and of those, 5 billion have never heard the good news. So 530 sounds awesome.
It does, yeah.
Until you stand it up next to.
You get your work cut out for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Job's not done yet.
Yeah, get back to work.
Job's not done yet. Well, I tell a lot of people we're in a religious war, and most people don't even realize it. Like constantly, whether it's religion against religion, whether it's the dark forces that are in play, whatever that is, we're all in a religious war, and over half the people don't realize it's happening. Yeah. That's pretty scary.
Kind of oblivious.
Everything going on right now in, you would know more than we would. What's the country, how do you pronounce it, that just did the Sharia law as physical law?
Oh, Myanmar?
It starts with a B. B-R, Bria? Brunei.
Oh.
Is that how you pronounce it, Brunei?
Oh, Shahir.
Because they're an Indonesian country.
Myanmar's Buddhist, but no.
So they've just enacted basically some Sharia law in physical law. So if something gets stolen now, they can cut off a limb. If you're caught cheating on your husband, you can be stoned to death. And if you're a homosexual, you can be stoned to death.
Oh, wow.
Not just people in their country, but people visiting.
Wow.
As well. So you don't have to be a citizen to fall under their law. So, of course, a lot of people are up in arms about it. But again, it shows you that there's this conflict going, that a lot of people, they might think it's a war on LGBTQ, but it's actually a much bigger war that's being fought than that.
Wow.
So it's pretty mind-blowing.
Now, I know as far as the Orlando piece, you're only here in our area. We're blessed to have the opportunity to share some time with you over the course of the next couple months. But you're heading to Orlando, soon.
Yes,
like
we
the
are
next few months.
In July. That's kind of our target date. We have crew has a conference in Colorado, biannual conference, and we're believing that when we return from that in late July, we'll be ready to pack up and report to our assignments. So, yeah, as Josh was saying, right now we go around and we speak at churches, men's groups, Sunday schools.
You got a Celebrate Recovery coming up. What?
I do.
Yeah,
Actually, this Friday night.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I am going to be speaking at a Celebrate Recovery event at the Grace Assembly of God Church in New Whiteland, Indiana. And
Represent.
Yes.
Whiteland High School, 1988.
South Side. But it's really neat because I always love giving back to these type of organizations because I can relate to these guys, and part of the really cool thing about going overseas was just, when I would share my story, and a lot of people, especially, where I was in Papua New Guinea, when they would meet white-skinned missionaries, usually the man had a degree in theology, his wife was a nurse, and they had two beautiful, well-behaved children, and then they meet me, and I'm this single, divorced guy who used to be an alcoholic, and they're like, you're like one of us,
Right.
and I'm like, yes, absolutely,
You're real.
So, it is. Even got into doing prison ministry there because I spent a few hours a couple times for operating a motor vehicle when I shouldn't have.
Yep.
And so I can even bring that into the conversation when I'm overseas or even here in the United States. So, but yeah, I love, Celebrate Recovery is basically a 12-step with a Christian basis and a foundation. So I get to go there and share with these guys, and some of them don't think they can make it or whatever. I can just say, hey, with God, all things are possible, and I'm living proof. I mean, I'm a missionary, and just 8 short years ago, I was hopeless.
You were on a path of death.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that you were able to pull that,
Right.
turn that around that one significant day.
Which in itself is
Powerful.
an incredible story because my wife's a nurse. So, now I understand. I've had some friends that actually were in the hospital due to alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And to see if somebody's drinking a liter of vodka a day, to actually see what that does to their body and not even their body, but their mind. Like
Yes.
the mind goes and schizophrenia and all these other things. And to be able to watch how long it takes somebody to I have a good friend right now that just actually had a life-death experience with alcoholism. He's completely turned his life around from a health standpoint and is a completely different person now. You did it like that. So that's a huge story because that's not typically how alcoholism, how getting out of that works.
In 20 plus years, right?
Yeah, 28 years. I was an
that's
everyday
incredible.
drinker. I mean, I was the kind of drinker that got the shakes in 3 in the afternoon. I had to have, at least, 6 ounces of alcohol just to get rid of the shakes and get back to normal. That was a daily thing after work, So for me to just, and I had never had any DTs or detox, no withdrawals. It's literally like, and I've been with people, and in certain situations over dinner or something, and I get to this point in my testimony, and they're looking at me and looking down at their glass of wine, and they're like feeling really self-conscious, and I'm like, really, no worries. I mean, it's like I never drank at all.
Wow.
It has no effect on me now. Whatever stresses come up in life, which happens time to time, it's not like it's not, my mind is not wired to default to alcohol at all like it once was.
A lot of people are, though.
Oh, absolutely.
That are going through recovery. There's that I hear the constant temptation, and you know that it does. They have to. It's on their mind, but it hasn't been with you.
No, and actually, what had happened? I was going through. My employer kind of highly suggested that I get some help, and so I took him up on it. And I was in a treatment facility. It was an outpatient, but I was going. And the first week, I was going to classes, and then at night I was going home and drinking. And then I heard this guy come in, and he was saying how the only thing that kept him sober now is that he didn't have another recovery in him. The last one took 3 years, and he said, if I drink, I die. And he was a fairly young man, younger than me, and I could just see the anguish on him. He wasn't a believer, so he defeated this, through sheer willpower. And honestly, I didn't have that much willpower. I wasn't able. In my first marriage, my wife had always, please. I was married for 13 years, and I couldn't quit. And I was unable. I thought the only way I'd quit was to go to prison for, hitting somebody with my car or something because, I'd gotten bad reports from the doctor, and I was like, well, it's irreversible, so might as well enjoy what I have left. And I couldn't quit on my own, and even relationships couldn't stimulate me to quit. So I heard this guy, and, there was just such pain on his face, and he was saying how he wakes up every day and has to fight this demon. And I thought, he's stronger than I am because I can't do that. And that's when I went home, and I was lying in bed, and I just said, God, I can't. You're going to have to help me. I'm at the end of my road. This is because I can't wake up every day and do that. And, in a 12 step, that's why they, instruct you to wake up and say, I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic, because you must admit that this addiction is stronger than you. Because the minute you begin to think you've got this or you've mastered it on your own, it'll come back and bite you. And so, a lot that I share with people, and I'll share at Celebrate Recovery, whenever people say, what's your advice for being sober for 8 years? And I say, what? As much as God's grace and His mercy, He gives us all a free will. And, I could leave here today, this afternoon, and go buy a fifth of Jim Beam and a 6-pack of beer. And by 6 o'clock tonight, I'd be back in the same situation. Mm-hmm. I'd be an addict again, thinking about how I was going to work drinking into tomorrow's schedule. I mean, it's that real. So it's, but God, without Him, it would be impossible for me.
It's incredible.
So.
And then the other piece of it, the fact that you had met, the relationship's growing, and a lot of times men in your situation would gravitate to, I need this now, right? I need something else in my life. And you were willing, and you were both strong enough to say, but this calling is bigger, and this will be here when you get back. Like, people say miracles don't happen. We've got 2 miracles right here that happen.
Multiple. Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Well, and to have that 2-year time period, and then for you to, come back, and then because you're recently married, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
September of last year.
September 2018.
Yes.
That is awesome, man. And as far as obviously looking at your pamphlet, and we'll send some stuff as well. Both of you were on there. This is a mission you guys are doing together.
Yes. Absolutely.
Tell us about that, because there's couples out there that work together. And there's couples that say, I could never work with my spouse. Tell us about, how.
And you both seem very happy, so what's the secret?
Give the secret sauce.
Being married 6 months, but no, you can share a little bit about what you'll be doing.
Yeah, well, I'd like to, eventually I'll travel with Tony some when he travels. He'll be gone 4 to 6 weeks when he leaves, but I'll be doing at the headquarters more like communications, reaching out to the big donors that fund the big Jesus film projects, writing to them and just encouraging them to keep giving. But like we get along so well, I believe, because we put God first.
Yeah.
We put God first in everything. We pray every day together, and that's the secret.
Yeah, Absolutely.
It
God, and
is.
then it's your marriage, and then it's everything else, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's so powerful.
It is.
Easier
It
said
is.
than done. It's a challenge to keep it in line
Yes.
when life happens, but that's the secret sauce.
And it is, as Harrison alluded to, just that, where Dianna just quit her job the first of the year, and so now she's full time with Campus Crusade, and it's an adjustment. I've kind of been doing this for about 5 years now. Been, supported by churches and individuals, but for her, this is still a learning curve a little bit here, which. In Jesus Film, a lot of the corporate projects are funded through corporate or large donations. But she and I were minister or partner supported, and so that's it gives there's some advantages to that because we have to look to God first and foremost for everything, and then being accountable to our partners second, and keeping them informed, and when people are partners, prayer partners are obviously the most important, considerably more so than finances. And our prayer partners, we love to keep them informed on how they can be praying for us, what's going on in the ministry, but also how we could be praying for you. I would be honored, if somebody like Josh would say, hey, with 5 daughters, he might need a few prayers every now and then.
This is good to know.
He needs a lot of prayers. A lot of prayers.
But yeah, we love to communicate with our partners.
Love it. Love it.
Well, and also too spreading. So from now until Orlando, you're gonna have some time. You're looking for more opportunities to go out. So you're going to celebrate recovery. You're looking for opportunities to speak in front of churches, share the mission, share the vision, share ways on how to connect with you and your mission and the cool Jesus Film project.
Amen.
How could someone reach out to you? Who are you looking for? How could someone reach out to you and to make that connection so you can go out to talk to their group, small
absolutely.
groups?
We go everywhere. In the next 6 weeks, we have speaking engagements everywhere from Chicago down to Evansville. We go, wherever God opens the door.
And you're looking for more.
Yeah, absolutely. We love, church. We go, just sit down, and we had this morning over breakfast with another couple, and just the 4 of us sat there, and we were able to share with them. So we whatever God opens the opportunities, but we're always open to that. As far as getting a hold of us, the Facebook page I have is Anthony Speziale, and
Speziale.
That is correct. And we actually have a group page called My Great Commission.
My Great Commission.
So if they just contact us on that.
So it's just called My Great Commission? Okay. So we'll put a link up to that.
Yeah, my email's just my name at Jesus Film.
Tony or Anthony?
It's Anthony.
Anthony.
Speziale, Speziale, at jesusfilm.org.
That's awesome. Incredible. So anybody out there that member of a church, and I know a lot of you are, this is a great speaker to have out, to come out and have them share the vision, the story, everything that they're doing. It's powerful. It's incredible.
Yeah.
You got to have them out.
For sure. We got to get them connected with Truth at Work as well.
We'll get you connected with Truth at Work, our friends at Appian Media, and we're going to make some great stuff happen.
And on the Facebook portion, anyone that can think of any possible connections, groups that they can speak at, groups that they can affiliate so they can learn more about the Jesus Film project, put something in the comments below. Of course, we'll have your connection there. They can reach out to you right on Facebook as well. But for our podcast listeners...
we'll have a link in the show notes, the description, and we'll make sure that you guys get everything you need. Or, of course, always come to the Facebook Amplify Indy page, and you can get everything there as well. Or the AmplifyIndy.com website, also.com.
Did we cover everything? This is just exciting. I mean, we're so honored to have met you guys.
You know what? We're just blessed and honored.
We're very excited.
It was just a total God appointment how I got to meet you guys. And who would have thought a month later I'd be sitting here and So no, I think we're good, and we're just like I said, we're blessed and honored to be able to go and do, and so
You guys are living it, aren't you?
yeah, it's pretty
we
cool.
are.
That is so awesome.
Not bad for a couple guys 6 months ago didn't talk religion or politics.
Yeah, then
right?
what's happening to us, man?
Here we go. Here we are. All right. Well, I think that's it for this episode of the Amplify Indy podcast. My name is Harrison Painter.
And I'm Josh Bach.
And until next time,
Love it.
love it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Cool.
That
good,
Thank
was
you,
great.
man.
Yeah,
Yes, that was fun.
great.
Yeah, so we got to brainstorm too. So what about, because like he had mentioned, I think